after a question. Now, if you want to tell people out there with disabilities that they don't warrant going on a main agenda, then that's up to you. But it's up to me. It's incumbent on me to bring that to you. What you do with that information, which has been nothing, is up to you. But that is the only way that got into this room. So if you want to get rid of things like that, it's on you. Changes to points of order. There will be no challenge given in the chamber, even if the advice is wrong. Now, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but no challenge in the chamber. You cannot challenge. There is a blanket, cannot challenge. So you can get up and give the wrong advice. You can't challenge it because you're going to get shut down. Questions from councillors, which are usually at the start of the meetings, and is where we can put any questions to the council leadership, will be moved to the end of the meetings. And this is important, will not have a protected amount of time. So effectively, it's likely that the meeting will finish with me or anybody else not being able to publicly ask questions on behalf of people who have elected me. You will time me out, you'll do the 3 hours, and we'll all be off home and everybody will be having their tea, and we'll be frustrated, or you may be. You, because be careful what you wish for, as Councillor Wilson has said. The next mayor, who, given the numbers in the room at the moment, is quite likely to be Councillor Tandy, can decide that if a councillor says things that she doesn't like, or they don't like, or disagree with, for example, somebody challenges a ruling, or if that ruling is wrong, that councillor can then be banned from speaking for the rest of the meeting. The councillor will not be heard at the discretion of the mayor. So again, you're willing to shut down people like me that bring the representation to the people in here of my residents that have elected me, and you lot just want to keep hammering those nails into the coffin that's got the democracy inside of it. Well done, because keep going. I put this on Facebook, I had 13,500 people read this, and there was not much in support of what you're trying to do. Not much at all. So it's all on you. You choose to do this. We're not going to back this up. If you want to shut down debate and kill democracy in this chamber, please go ahead, because everybody out there will be made fully aware of what's going on.
Mr. Mayor, can I?
Thank you, Councillor Goldberg, Councillor Pomfret.
Mr. Mayor, this is the third time that these issues have been debated. Many of the issues have come up, I don't know how many times, no doubt Councillor Condicar's counting. I move that we go to the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Pomfret. I was just going to say that we've had 6 out of 12 speakers, so I'm going to propose that we move to the vote. Do I get a second? Okay, so June's got, Councillor Tandy's got the right to reply, then we move to the vote.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor. Not very much to say, except I wish some people would have read the documents and the changes properly, because some of the points that have been raised are already in the Constitution and haven't been changed. And one comment that Councillor Wilson said, if or when, who knows who will be controlling this council next year, you'll get what you wish for. Fine. If it helps better debate in this council chamber, then we'll have what we wish for. Thank you very much. I move the recommendations, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So now,
this is a recorded vote on the procedural motion to move to the vote. Okay. So for or against, please. Councillor Beaumont. For. Councillor Brinley Edwards. Against. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Kazane.
Against.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby. Councillor Graham.
Against.
Councillor Gooteridge. Councillor Hancock.
For.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condacor.
Against.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longden. Councillor Pandare. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent.
Against.
Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tromans.
Against.
Councillor Walmsley.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
Last time I get to do this. Against.
Okay, so I use my casting vote for. Okay, so now we're moving to substantive motion.
If you could indicate for or against a substantive motion on the agenda, please. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley-Edwards. Councillor Brown.
Against.
Councillor Croft.
Against.
Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Kazane.
Against.
Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby. Councillor Graham.
Against.
Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor.
Against.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
Against.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longden.
For.
Councillor Pandare. Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent.
Against.
Councillor J. Sargent.
Against.
Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith.
Against.
Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tromans.
Against.
Councillor Walmsley.
Against.
Councillor Watkins.
For.
Councillor Wilson.
Against.
Casting vote for.
Shame.
Right, now some order in here. Moving on with business. Code of conduct for employees, part 5 of the Council's Constitution. A report from the Audit and Standards Committee is at page 100 of the agenda. Councillor Tandy, will you move the recommendations set out in the agenda paper?
I move the report, the recommendation from this report, Mr Mayor.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Can you read out the point of order?
Yes, I was wondering if the rules, the changes to the Constitution that are just being voted on and adopted have taken into effect now or as of the next council meeting.
It's not that way.
Okay, so Councillor Tandy's moved it. Is anybody seconded Councillor Pomfret? So just to confirm, Councillor Grant, it's next council meeting. Okay? Right, Councillor Pomfret, you seconded it. Does anyone member wish to speak? Councillor Condacor.
Thank you very much. I'm unclear, because we haven't done it like the Constitution, what changes have been made. On the Constitution we had coloured bits so we could see what in the document has changed. This document just tells us a new code of conduct and there's not really any clue as to if anything's actually gone in or out. So I would like that clarity if we're voting on a changed document. Also, there's been a big issue at the moment with gagging orders and when people leave employment around those issues. So I think the whistleblowing area and actually what happens with if they leave, they then have to sign a gagging order. I think that needs to be an area of investigation as well. So I'm not keen to vote on this at the moment, because I don't know what the changes are, and I do have concerns. I do believe from the BBC Freedom of Information request that gagging orders were used quite a bit at this council for people who've left the council.
Thank you, Councillor Condacor. Is there anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Right, thank you. Can we take the vote then, please? Okay, so all those in favour, can you please rise? Against? Any abstain? No, okay, brilliant, thank you. Moving on, business, vice chairs and regularity committees and audit and standards committee, articles 8 and 9 of the council's constitution. Report from the audit and standards committee is at page 113 of the agenda papers. Councillor Tandy, will you move the recommendation set out in the agenda papers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the recommendations as the changes in Appendix A be approved and at 2.2 and at 2.3, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Tandy. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pomfret. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Concourt.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. A couple of years ago, we had 2 opposition groups, each with 3 members. And so I always get worried when you write in the Constitution and these changes, as it says on page 114, the main opposition group, but actually in the future we may have 2 opposition groups of equal size, or at least 2 opposition groups of a reasonable size. I mention this particularly because the Greens are catching up with Conservatives in the Euro polling at the moment. And I think it is a real opportunity as parties and things change in the future that we may not have just 2 big groups. And so I think we do need to phrase this in a way that actually means when we're looking for vice chairs, there is not a group that suddenly is the main opposition group. Because in the future, one opposition group may have 7 members, one may have 6, and suddenly the one with 7 has all the opposition chairs. So I do think we need to future-proof this thing for when we end the days of 2-party politics and when the Greens get more councillors than the Conservatives.
Thank you, Councillor Concourt. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is actually one of the things that I certainly do agree with, and I put on record my agreement with. I think that we've had a couple of instances where we've had committees where the chairman's not been able to attend, and where there's then had to be a process for electing a chair. And where it is, especially when we're in a minority council as we are at the moment, where it is that those committees are then tied without a chair, it could mean that meetings, there was one potential meeting that could have had to have been deferred to a future date because there could be no consensus on who should or shouldn't chair the meeting. I think what this does is this brings in line the regulatory committees and other committees and subcommittees to those which are currently administered to the OA review and scrutiny panels. I think they work particularly well, where you have a good vice chair. You've got 2 sets of eyes, particularly now that some of the committees are much larger. You've got 2 sets of eyes looking out for who's indicating, who's not indicating, and so forth. And it just sort of aids the chair a little bit as well during the meeting, and in addition to the fact that if a chair can't make a meeting for whatever reason, it allows it to continue on the night and continue with the business as was. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, this particular item has been to both the Constitution Review Working Party and the Audit Committee. It has been debated at length. We seem to have consensus amongst most of the council. I move to the vote.
Okay, does that seconder, Councillor Floyd, okay then, right, so shall we move to the vote then on that, please? All those in favour? Anybody against? Anybody else now? No, okay, just one against then. Just one against. Oh, that's procedural. That was to go to the vote. Okay, so now we're going to the vote, and we'll vote on 4 against, 4 against. Anybody abstaining? No. Okay, right, thank you. Right, moving on to timetable of meetings. A report was suggested. Dates for meetings is. Oh, I missed one. Oh, yeah, sorry, yeah. Sorry, I was getting a bit keen there, wasn't I? Allowing other members onto the OSP Committee Working Groups, Part 4 of the Council's Constitution. A report from the Audit and Standards Committee is at page 115 of the agenda papers. Councillor Tandy, will you move the recommendations set out in the agenda papers?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the recommendations as printed.
Okay, does that get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Pomfret. Does any member wish to speak? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think this is actually an area where it can enhance the work of what the council does, because at the moment we used to have an informal arrangement under previous democratic services officers where if you weren't on an OSP but you expressed an interest on another OSP's working party, you could do that, and for whatever reason in the midst of time it's not happened, someone's reinterpreted the rules or someone's enforced the rules. I don't really care. I actually think it made matters better when members who might at the moment be on external, they might have an interest in a particular item that the internal committee has said we want to form a working party on. And I think we would be missing out on that valuable experience if we don't allow that person on there. We all as councillors have our different interests, and in scrutiny we actually do some very good work across party. There has been some very good working parties across party in the OSPs over the years. I can certainly remember ones that I've done over end-of-life care. That's gone political, but that was a really extremely valuable piece of work across party political boundaries, which because that's now to do with the hospital, I sit on external, I couldn't do, I'm on internal, I couldn't do because that's external, but it's very close to my heart, having experienced that with a member of my family. I'm sure there are other members across the chamber who are in similar positions, regardless of what topic it may be. So also it has a very practical aspect that not every committee can form a working party from its membership, and it would enable, so long as I think we compromised on 3 from the original working party, and then open it up to everyone else to say there are vacancies on this working party, is anyone interested, whether they sit on OSP or they sit on none. So I think this is an area where we should actually push this through, because it will see better scrutiny, better representation, and hopefully better outcomes for our residents. So I support this proposal, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Just so that I don't do you out of any airtime next one, can you press the other mic, because the cameras are not swinging round to you, so it's staying on me, and I don't want that. Councillor Condicle.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, I'm very keen on actually attending working parties, so this is a big improvement. At the County Council, we're very grown up and we've had a lot of very useful working parties. I've even chaired one at the County Council, such as the non-partisanness of some of the working parties. So I'm really keen on this, and I think one of the key points is people with special interests, because I've obviously got a big interest in rubbish and recycling, cycling itself, and various things, and we could have one on bus services hopefully. So yeah, I'm really keen on this, and I'm keen to get people involved, because we do nothing useful in this chamber. Where we do useful things is in the committee rooms.
Thank you, Councillor Condicle. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I echo many of the words from what have been said today. I think the importance here is, and to reiterate, that is actually expertise in an area one of us may have through professional or through personal interest, expertise in a particular area that you may not be able to be on or not on an OSP. And I don't think that in the event that the OSP wants to fill the working party itself, I don't think we should be excluding those sorts of people from the debate and the discussion. Allow them to bring any useful experience they may have into the discussion, into the debate, and go forward. I would make one request, which is a little pedant in me. If we could have the close of the brackets inserted, please, on 4E20. We've got open brackets, except those who are excluded from etc., but there's no closed brackets, so could we have that inserted, please? Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Jackson.
Mr. Mayor, it seems on this we have unanimity across the chamber. On those grounds and those grounds only, I move that we move to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson and Councillor Phillips. Right, so is everybody in agreement with that? Do we all agree that we move to the vote? Brilliant. Okay, let's move to the vote then. So, all those in favour? Okay, right, now, moving on. Timetable of meetings 2019, 2020, 2021. A report with suggested dates for meetings is at page 124 of the agenda papers. Councillor Jackson, will you move the recommendations set out on page 127 of the agenda papers?
Mr Mayor, I do so with one slight amendment, and that is to confirm, it's in the addendum that all members have had, which is to confirm that the Cabinet meeting that discusses the budget will now be at 6 p.m, to be consistent with the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Does that get a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Does anyone member wish to speak? Councillor Evan.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to put a friendly amendment to the timetable of meetings for 2019-2020 and 2020-2021. I'd like to move that, as an amendment, that the start time of the internal overview and scrutiny panel, the external overview and scrutiny panel, and the Audit and Standards Committee start time starts at 6 p.m. as opposed to 5 p.m. So what my amendment does is every council meeting, with the exception of the Planning Applications Committee, will start at 6 p.m. and I've left the Planning Applications Committee out because I know there would be a few difficulties in doing that with people, developers and whatnot who want to attend the meeting, as do local residents. The reason I'm moving this is because we all want to ensure that the council is transparent, and there's a lot of interesting things that are discussed at the overview and scrutiny panels, particularly the external one with regards to healthcare in the borough. And what I'd like to ensure is that if members of the public actually want to attend these meetings, they should have the chance to, and not rushing from work to get to these meetings in time. So I formally move, Mr Mayor.
Right, does that get a seconder? But before it gets a seconder, can I just explain that before you joined this council, these used to be at 4:30. The reason we moved them to 5 o'clock was to allow the professionals from healthcare and things to attend. I just personally think, and this is just me personally, think that moving it back a little bit might put a few of them off. However, if you get a seconder, that's fine.
Mr Mayor, I would like to second that. Mr Mayor, I would like to second that. A few members have spoken to me. Members on all sides of the chamber have working commitments, and a few other members have spoken to me and explained that 5 o'clock, and I know this myself when I used to work in Birmingham particularly, it can be a struggle to get here for 5 o'clock for some committee meetings, and to a large extent you're reliant in some cases on having a very forgiving and understanding employer if you are in those circumstances. I'm fortunate that my employer allows me to do so, but others do reluctantly and through gritted teeth allow members to do so. As Councillor Jackson has indicated about moving the budget cabinet meeting, which I agree with, which was for consistency, again this would ensure some consistency across the piece about moving the overview and scrutiny panels to 6 o'clock as well. Especially with all the development which is going on across this town. Traffic is becoming increasingly difficult for many, many people. We've all complained about traffic when we've come to a meeting, and it is becoming more difficult to get to certain meetings in some instances. I think this is fairer to members who do work. I understand the point about getting people from professional bodies to come to scrutiny panels, may not do so at 5, might not do so at 6, but will at 5. But quite often those people are there past 6 anyway. And they're either going to buy in or they're not, whether it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, because we have no power to compel their attendance. This isn't like a select committee of Parliament where you can hold them in contempt. We're reliant on their goodwill anyway, and actually some people might find it easier if they're giving evidence to come at 6 o'clock because of the traffic issues, because of work commitments and things like that. So I understand it's a very difficult balancing act. Whichever time you pick is never going to please everyone all the time. However, I think it is worthy of consideration by this council as to whether we want to go down that route, because we have to try and be a fair. I know we're not technically an employee of the council, even though we're taxed as an employee of the council, but we do have to try and be fair across the board, not just to officers, but also to councillors as well, in trying to ensure they can meet and fulfil their duties. I certainly think it's worthy of debate in this chamber rather than glossing over it entirely, because members have raised those concerns in the past, and no doubt will do so again.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Councillor Concord.
So I want to talk the main motion, not this amendment.
Right, okay. Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to support this amendment. Quite simply, as anybody knows, with modern day life, getting to and from meetings is more and more challenging with the traffic that we've got. We're trying to encourage more diverse participation in the council, from members, from the public. We want to get people to attend, and quite frankly, holding meetings at a time that is traditional but suits us but doesn't suit the public is flying in the face of greater transparency and greater democracy, which is what we're here to try and encourage. So I think regularising these meetings to start at 6 o'clock is a sound and just proposal, and I certainly will be supporting it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brown. Councillor Jackson.
Mr Mayor, not everybody works 9 till 5. We have shift workers in this borough who work outside of these hours, and frankly, I want to make these meetings as accessible to members of the public. Frankly, councillors are entitled to certain times off from work in agreement with their employees. Fairness to members, secondary in my opinion, to fairness to the people we represent. And can I say 6 o'clock, as a mum, when I first joined this council, of very small children, 6 o'clock was actually bath time and feeding your kids and putting them to bed. So I think there's an equal opportunities issue here. Had Councillor Wilson suggested that we did a consultation with those people we invite to our meetings to see how it may affect them, that we did a consultation of all elected members about their availability, if we did a consultation with members of the public, I may consider this to have some validity. As it stands, it has none, because there's no evidence base behind it. And Mr Mayor, I do suggest that we move to the vote on this.
I was going to ask for a second there, Councillor Phillips. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to the vote on that.
On the amendment.
So we're having a vote on the vote.
Now, amendment.
On the amendment, Councillor Concord. Amendment, we deal with amendment first.
Sorry, to move to vote or...
No, so we're having a vote to move to the vote on the amendment. All those in favour, please show your hands. Against? Abstain. Okay, so let's move into the vote as lost. Councillor Jackson, you wanted to speak?
Mr Mayor.
Councillor Hancock's. Right, so we're still on the amendment then. So we're still talking on the amendment. So Councillor Hancock.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I thought it was lost.
No, Councillor Hancock. That was to move to the vote.
Well, thank you. I've lost me a bit of paper now. Mr Mayor, there's one thing we can all agree on, is you can't agree on times of meetings.
Mr Mayor, point of order. I believe we have just agreed a procedural motion to move to the vote, and therefore we should immediately move to the vote.
So we voted to move to the vote, and it was lost. Councillor Longden.
That's a point of order, Mr Mayor. Councillor Condacor abstained. So 16-16, and it was your casting vote. Watch my fingers, look. 1, 2...
Councillor Longden.
16.
Point of order, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Longden. Councillor Wilson, just a minute.
So, apologies, Mr Mayor, I can't go.
I'm beginning to doubt my own sanity now. Right, so we voted on moving to the vote, and that lost. So now we're continuing with the amendment on the debate of the amendment. Is everybody clear on that? And you're indicating to speak. Right, okay, so because we're continuing to speak on the amendment, the next on my list was Councillor Hancock.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As I started to say, one thing we can all agree on is we won't agree on times of meetings, and what suits one person doesn't suit another. And Mr Mayor, I know I go back a long way, but I remember when we used to have meetings in the morning here. Then we had meetings at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And we scrapped those times because we wanted to be more democratic, more open, and be able to get more members of the public to meetings. I know certainly within planning applications, very often, as the leader referred to, we used to consult with members and do a general consultation on what suited, and you know the answer, we could never get an agreement. Planning's slightly different because you've got to take account of the seasonal weather in case you're doing site visits with confidential items, but I'm not talking about just that. I'm not going to support the amendment because I don't think that gives that opportunity for members of the public properly. And it's quite right. There's lots of people who work all sorts of odd shifts. The leader mentioned about people doing shift work. Not, it isn't even shift work as we remember traditionally. People get called in at all sorts of hours, do all sorts of odd sorts of things. And I think we're making, again, over-egging something here. I think go for what we've got. If it doesn't work out, we can look at that again, Mr Mayor, but I don't see a thing for us to fall out about just for an hour on a meeting. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Councillor Walmsley.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I rise to support the motion of Councillor Evans. I think actually if it's good enough for council, full council, for cabinet, particularly if you look particularly over recent councils, I should say, not weeks, recent councils, you'll see that actually having started at 6 o'clock, they've been pretty well attended by the public when there have been issues and items that concern them. I think it allows them much easier access to come in to our meetings, much greater openness and transparency, which I think is what we all should be very clearly after. I think that also, in addition to that, it would allow for us to, for all parties to be able to recruit from a wider pool of candidates who may struggle for 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock, etc., just to hopefully to allay the concerns of Councillor Hancock's. The motion that Councillor Evans put down was very clear that this was to apply to not apply to the Planning Applications Committee. It would apply to the OSPs and the Audit and Standards Committee. And so I absolutely wholeheartedly support and endorse this, and hopefully we can vote it through this evening. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Colby.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As a parent of young children, I actually would appreciate a later start on meetings because my life is crazy enough as it is without trying to get here for 5 o'clock. I mean, it's almost like moving a mountain sometimes when you've got to, like I say, go through the traffic, sort the kids out, get them from school, get home, get them sorted, get them in. If I can get an extra hour out of that, bonus for me. It just works better. It also works a lot better for people who do work till 5 o'clock. And I know we are allowed time off, but they are not necessarily allowed time off. So we do find that there is a lack of representation from residents, and it has been a complaint that sometimes it is difficult for people to get into things where they really want to speak about things. We've had things where we've had a couple of people attending when we discussed the RISE mental health changeover from RISE to CAMS, and there was a couple of people there. I know there were more people that wanted to attend but couldn't really get there on time and couldn't commit the time to it because of when the meeting was starting. So I do think that we've had it in a fixed starting point for quite a while, and I'm not sure what harm it would do to actually just kind of change it and see whether it helps or not. We've seen one side of the coin, maybe it's time to flip it and we can see the other.
Thank you, Councillor Goldby. Councillor Longden? Okay, Councillor Guttridge?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I fully support Councillor Carl Evans's motion to move to 6 o'clock. I'm a sales rep. I travel the country lanes of Warwickshire, Leicestershire, Northamptonshire and Oxfordshire. I've done it for the past 40 years and there's no country lanes now. The traffic is horrendous and I fully support going back to 6 o'clock. I work in the farming industry. We don't stop milking the cows at 5 o'clock. They do need milking on a Saturday and a Sunday. We work 24/7. My wife is a midwife. She doesn't stop halfway through delivering a baby and saying, hang on, I've got to go home. She carries on. Many a time I've gone to bed at night and she's not been there and woken up, and she's put the hours in. So I agree, we've got to move with the times and move meetings till 6 o'clock. We are all on shift works. My day consisted this morning, I was in the office for 6:45. I left the office, I've done a few jobs this afternoon, I've come here. I should return home 9, half 9. I don't mind, but we've got to move with the times. The world is changing and we've got to change with the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Guttridge. Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
I also fully support Councillor Evans. We've been talking about public transport tonight as well. In order to come to a meeting for 5 o'clock, I actually can't get here for 5 unless one of my colleagues gives me a lift. I come from the hospital in Coventry and I have to get 2 buses because I don't drive the car, and that takes me over an hour and a half, would you believe? So starting meetings at 6 o'clock is really welcome for me. On the occasions when I do have to be for, say, a site visit on planning, I'm at the will of my employer whether they let me come here or not. And I want to represent my ward, so starting later at 6 o'clock would be brilliant for me, but I think, as somebody else has also reiterated, that you're more likely to get more people in the public gallery, because if they're finishing work at 5, they can't be here for 5 for a debate to start, but 6 o'clock seems to be a time when it suits a lot of people.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Llewellyn-Nash. Councillor Phillips.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor. I fully understand the sentiments of what's been said tonight. However, I think we've had enough debate on this. People's personal circumstances change as the years go by. I just can't understand why the party opposite, who knew this was coming to Cabinet a week or so ago, didn't make any representation then. They know it comes up this time every year, and they didn't make any representation. They didn't put it through OSP to be looked at, to be voted on, for a recommendation like the made tonight to go through the scrutiny channels. Move the vote, Mr. Mayor. Again.
Right, thank you, Councillor Phillips. Well, there is no more speakers anyway, so we're going to have to move to the vote. Like I said at the beginning, I do think for the police and the hospital staff, it'd be a mistake, but let's do it. So this is the vote on the amendment. So all those in favour of the amendment? Okay, thank you. Those against? Abstain. Okay, so the amendment is lost. So now we put
Mr. Mayor, can I move straight to the vote on the substantive motion?
Yeah, does that find a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Phillips. Okay, let's move to the vote on the substantive motion. Oh, right, okay, so, yeah, that's what I say, move to vote on that. So let's move, all those in favour, please. Against? Mayor's casting vote for. Okay, so that is almost. Oh, no, let's take the vote on the vote. Right, let's take the vote on the vote. So all those in favour? Anybody against? Okay, thank you very much. So, right, so that's carried. Just before we all finish, Paul, the porter, has apparently got a dog that has been left with him. Oh, sorry, Councillor Longman, you can take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On Monday night, in the rear car park, a gentleman collapsed with a suspected heart attack. It turned out to be a stroke, and he was very worried about his dog, as were the paramedics who came. And Paul, the porter, kept the dog safe, took it home that night, and brought it back yesterday morning. The gentleman has been in contact since and said, please don't put the dog with the RSPCA. And another member of staff has taken the dog, and there's 3 other members of staff who are lined up, ready if that particular placement doesn't work, and they've lost dogs and things like that. And I really think, despite what the members opposite think, because they never ever praise our staff, but this case, I think. Oh, shut up, you don't.
Councillor Longden.
They don't, Mr. Mayor. I've never seen one of them give any credit to our staff.
But in this case,
we need to have it recorded in the minutes that our staff are doing those particular things very well.
Right, okay. Right, I'd like to thank all the councillors, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes tonight's business. Have a safe journey home and see you at the next one. Thank you very much.
One way, please. Haven't called residents more hours.